Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from Artillery 10, out May 7th on Metal Blade Records. The album has 11 tracks, 46 minutes in length, and this is the band's 10th full-length studio album. They are a Danish thrash metal band. Now this is an album that has a classic approach. It has side A, side B. In the middle you have a ballad, a song that's a little bit softer that allows you to reset the record for that second half. Now when you look at both halves, they're very equal. All the strengths and weaknesses, the way the songs are construction, the ebb and flows that you have between tracks and within the tracks themselves, the soundscape, the direction that the guitars are taking, all of these elements are present in equal amounts and in the exact same style, same format across both sides. So when you look back at this record, it really feels like a continuous album that has a very nice flow, a very direct flow from the first song all the way to the last song. Once you get into the soundscape, the album offers a little bit of the past, a little bit of the present. It has some elements of that old school thrash metal sound, but it also has a lot of more modern approaches in terms of how it's recorded and how everything comes together. The ability to merge these two worlds is really important, and I think they did a wonderful job at that front because they allow the album to be very dynamic, they allow the album to have a lot of different sides to it, and the songs themselves to never feel really repetitive. There's no two songs that sound alike or that feel alike, and this allows the album to always keep you on the edge of your seat, and it keeps the soundscape of the album really moving forward, and it keeps the soundscape of the album very engaging throughout the whole experience. Within that sound, there are definitely two elements that become the cornerstones, the pillars of the record: drums and guitars. Let me start off by saying that I love the drums on this album. I love the fact that they have soul, they have depth, they have warmth, they're earthy, they just have a great presence, and that great presence in the drum sound really translates well to the overall experience that you're going to get out of the record and out of each and every single track. They just feel like they're there, they feel like they have substance, they feel like they have depth, they really ground the album well, they create a nice foundation for everything else that is happening, and there's not one single song that you can say that the guitars are overshadowing the drums or the drums are coming in a little bit flat under the guitars. No, the drums are always there, they always have a presence, and a very important presence throughout the whole experience of this album. On the other side, you got the guitars, perhaps a little bit more diverse. They go into different directions, they give you different feels, different looks, and they kind of bring in a little bit of that old school flavor, but at the same time they keep a lot of modern elements alive. I love the guitar solos on this album. The guitar solos are just phenomenal. They have an old school feel to it, they have an old school approach that matches really well with everything else that is happening, with how the songs are constructed, with the overall construction of this album. So the solos really fit perfectly into the overall construction and the overall design that they had in store for this record. The other elements in terms of being more driven, being a little bit more chunky, being a little bit more heavy, those elements are a little bit different from track to track and sometimes changing ever so slightly within the tracks themselves, but the drums and guitars work well together, and the drums don't allow the guitars to just completely take over the record, even though this is an album that you can feel the guitars are taking a little bit more of a forefront on it as far as the spotlight is concerned. You really feel them pushing the direction of the songs, but always helped by the power of the drums, by that earthiness that the drum sound has. The two elements is very hard to separate them on this album because I really feel like they worked well together from the first song all the way to the last. On top of it all, you have the vocals. The vocals have a very consistent approach. I don't think you're really going to get much of a difference from the first track all the way to the last. Sometimes the limits of the range are pushed, and that's to be expected, but I don't think they ever go outside of the norm, or they ever go outside of the boundaries that were set forward for this album. So there's a lot of consistency in approach, there's a lot of consistency in execution, and that adds one element that really brings everything together. So when you're listening to this record, it doesn't matter if one song is a little bit more driven, has a little bit more pace, it doesn't matter if the next song is a little bit more melodic, a little bit more methodic, or the next one has a little bit more heaviness. All of these things are changing, but the vocals are staying well connected across every single track, keeping that red line throughout the album. Overall, I enjoyed this record, but I felt like it fell flat on a few items, specifically the lyrics, the impact that has to the record, the impact that has to the choruses of the songs. Some of them had some hookiness to them, but some of them felt a little bit deflated or outside the box, if you will. The way the vocals match those lyrics, or the intensity or the lack of intensity that exists on some of the lyrics, really reflects in terms of how you process and how you perceive the songs, and that is where the biggest problem of this album really exists. is in that lack of intensity. At times it's hard for you to connect with some of these lyrics, to connect with some of these songs from that perspective, and at times it doesn't feel like the music is elevating them or that they are elevating the music behind them. So the two feel sometimes a little bit disconnected from one another. The songs feel like they're pushing you forward, they have a little bit more drive, and the lyrics just don't match that same intensity. Now, as far as songs are concerned, I picked the opener track, The Devil's Symphony, and this opening track is really interesting because it starts off with a very Asian-driven melody. So I thought that was a little bit off-center, if you will, but it works well once you get used to it. It kind of fits in as a nice intro, as a nice wake-up call. You know, the album is getting started kind of vibe. Then once the song gets going, it's a driven song. The drums offer a solid ground, and that foundation that you're going to get on this song really starts to represent what this album is going to be all about as far as the drums are concerned. The guitars drive on top of that, and they start to dictate where this track is going to go. They start to dictate the tempo, the drive, the intensity, the heaviness. All those elements are really coming more from the guitars and where they're pushing you, while the drums are staying a little bit more consistent. The vocals match the intensity that you're getting out of the sound. This is one of those few songs where I really felt like everybody was pushing in the same direction, everybody was going towards the same goal. That's definitely present on this track, and it's important to have that on the first song of the album. You want to get off on the right foot, you want to get the listener engaged with the album and stay connected with the rest of the record. So having a song like this at the beginning of the record really works well because it lays out that red carpet and it gives you a glimpse of everything else you're going to get, and everything, like I said, is pulling in the same direction. They used some backing vocals on this song. I felt like that worked really well. Once again, it added volume, it added heaviness without necessarily having to use a heavier tone or a heavier delivery. Overall, this track has some dips, but it always feels like it's a heavy track. It always feels like it's moving at a great clip all the way through, so you almost don't notice those slight dips that are happening throughout the track. Next, In Your Mind, a more methodic song. And where this song perhaps loses a little bit tempo, it picks up a little bit of heaviness. So it just feels more methodic. It just feels like you're grinding your gears a little bit more with this track, still packing a punch. It comes a little bit more as a controlled track. You don't feel like this is a song that's going to break off or there's going to be something that's going to run away with it. No, it just feels more methodic. It just feels like it's moving along at a slower pace. But it still has a very interesting energy to it, and that energy is really coming from the combination of guitars and drums and how they intertwine with each other and how they create the overall soundscape for the track. The solo on this song is phenomenal. It has a little bit of an old school flavor to it, over the top, really well executed, really beautiful. It adds energy for a song that felt a little bit lacking of energy all the way up until that point. So it's an important reset button for the song itself, and then it returns back. Once that solo is finished, the song returns back to that more methodic approach that it had all the way from the beginning, so it goes full circle. Last but not least, we have Moore's Ontologica. I love the guitar sound, I love the guitar riff on this track. If there's one thing I walk away from this song is remembering how good the guitar sounded, how well executed it was, how punchy it was. It just had so much strength, it had just so much power. It always felt like it was in your face the whole time. That's the main thing that I take away from this song, and that's what puts this song into the forefront of becoming one of the most memorable tracks on this album. It has a catchy, hooky chorus that really becomes memorable, that really works well, not just with the song, it works well with the overall design that they had for the track. So I thought that was an interesting element as well. The guitar really delivers the win. Let's face the facts here. The vocals help, the drums help, the catchiness of the chorus helps make the song more memorable. But at the end of the day, if the guitars didn't sound the way they do, if they didn't feel the way they do, if they didn't have the power that they do, this song would completely fall flat. It lives off of the strength of the guitars through and through. This is it. This is Artillery with 10 out May 7th on Metal Blade Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.